Hello preppers and homesteaders. Is the American dream of homesteading over, and do you pretty much have to be a millionaire to be a homesteader nowadays? That's some of the things I've been hearing when I go on Reddit and a lot of different forums, is that a lot of people think the dream is over. If you think about it right now, the average price of a new car in America is $50,000. Land is expensive, housing is expensive. How are you supposed to have the dream of homesteading still in your mind when everything is so expensive? Let's get into that right now. Let's break into some realities though. There's lots of hidden costs. Land is expensive. Housing is expensive. If you're gonna buy a property with a house on there, if you're gonna build a house, labor is expensive to build a house. And if you're a homesteader, more than likely, you're gonna want a solar system. Solar systems are expensive. The federal tax credit that used to get 30% back is now gone. You're gonna need a well. You're gonna need a rain catchment system. The list goes on and on and on. You have ongoing expenses, animal feed, hay, vet bills, taxes, death and taxes. You just have constant everyday bills that are going and going and going. We are not 100% self-sufficient. We have a goal to be close to that, but it probably will never happen. I still like certain things that we cannot replicate at home, such as Doritos and coffee. But it's a reality that most of us will not be 100% self-sufficient, so there will always be some cost. You can offset these costs, but there will generally always be, you're going to be paying, and taxes we'll be paying the rest of our lives. There always will be taxes, and you're probably going to need transportation, vehicle cost, maintenance is expensive. It's just one of the things that we didn't anticipate moving out here was the increasing cost of vehicles and the effect on the used market. So that's an unexpected, one of the first things we wanted to do when we moved out here was buy a new Bronco, and that's still one of the most affordable vehicles, but it's still really expensive. And we're not driving one right now. We're still driving the vehicles that we had that were really not perfect for out here, and they're working. The financial strain. I was on a Reddit group the other day looking on there, and people were making fun of YouTubers, homesteader YouTubers, myself included, I guess, because they're saying they're all millionaires, they're all rich, they all have money, they homestead, they do these videos, and then they get in their $100,000 SUV and, go to their corporate job because they still have other jobs, or they're just making lots of money. Going on to Reddit, people were saying that homesteading is really expensive. You need money to homestead. And my answer to that is it expensive? And is it unobtainable? Yes, no. It depends on your definition of homesteading. We wanted to do a modern homestead, which in my definition of a modern homestead is we would have a house with plumbing and electrical. We would have solar power, and our house would feel like a house that was in the suburbs in functionality, but beyond that was the big thing. And we wanted to do it as cheaply as possible and frugal, and we didn't want to have any debt. So a tough, almost like a car, I want cheap, fast, and reliable, and they always say pick any two. Well, homesteading is a lot like everything. I used to always relate, even when I worked in manufacturing and the office jobs, I could relate everything to cars. And homesteading is a lot like buying a car. There's, you can't have it all unless you have a lot of money. You want a Lexus with everything, you're gonna pay this. You want functionality and reliability, you just get a Toyota Corolla. You want a little bit faster off-road capability, you gotta spend more. It's one of those, you have to determine what you want out of homesteading. It's one of those things like, yes, I would have loved, 100 acres and, a bigger house and this and that, all sorts of things, but we are living in a barn dominium. So, and I thank God for that because it's ours. We don't owe anything, and it's a great place to live. It's one of those things. I've talked to different homesteaders, different people, some people living more frugal, some people living, you know, their vacation cabins are nicer than most people's homes that I know. So it depends on your level of comfort and your level of finances, but I still believe the dream is obtainable for most people. You just have to be realistic. Land is expensive. Everything's expensive. So now that we got that out of the way, it makes things a little easier. The easiest way too, it's what we did. It's not going to work for everybody, but if you live in an area that is desirable and cost of living is expensive and you have a home, it's much easier to sell that home and go to an area that is less expensive. Now, I will say that gap is shrinking, so keep that in mind. And when you go, I don't know if you heard that, huge chunk of ice just slid off one of the buildings. It was pretty loud. That gap is shrinking though. So what I mean by that is, even in my area, locals say the cost of living has risen. People from outside of the area think it's low, but regardless, the supply is even lower. There is not a lot of property, as in raw land. Most of it is national forest, and there is not a lot of privately owned houses. So in general, unfortunately, either somebody moves or passes away and there is a property for sale, or it is very well overpriced. I was just talking to somebody the other day about this. There's quite a bit of properties in my area that have been on the market a long time. Like, I'm talking over a year. There's properties that pop up that have everything to make a great homestead, and they're priced good. They're gone in a week. So it's one of those, if somebody needs to sell it, they'll put it at a good price. And if somebody is in no hurry and is going to wait for the best price, or that once in a lifetime buyer that'll overpay, there's a lot of people doing that. There's a lot of people in this area that don't need to sell. So you got to keep that in mind. The supply is low, so don't think you're just going to go to the country, you're going to have big bucks because you sold your house. You know, the gap, like I said, is shrinking, and it's not as big as people think. Unless you're going from, like, you know, you're a millionaire or billionaire in California and then you move to like my area here, then it's probably still a humongous gap. The other thing a lot of you need to realize, wage gap. So I'm going to go over this again. I think I did a video on this in the past, but you know, you're in the city and say you're making, I'm just going to throw some numbers out there, just say you're making 50 bucks an hour. You're in the city, that's okay in the city, you know, because your cost of living is so high. It's everywhere else in the world, that is a humongous wage. You got to keep that in mind. So when you come to a rural area, and this is another thing, in that area that I just mentioned where, you know, say somebody's making, you know, professionals making 50 bucks an hour, that same area, a starting retail position at a retail store, minimum wage is pushed up to about $20 an hour because they can't get people. So in an area like where I'm at now, I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but I see the ad all the time. It's one of those rural dollar-based stores that are every rural area. They post all the time. They need people, and their starting pay is minimum wage, which is like $7 and something. And if you turn your nose to that, there's 30 people ahead of you that will take that job gladly. And a lot of people in the city look at that and turn their nose to that just because they're like, I'm not going to work for that. I'm not going to work for that wage. You know, I'm above this. And you need to consider that cost of living in most rural areas is cheaper. So is that gap really as big of a deal? I've always looked at it as honest work is honest work. I retired as in a professional, you know, capacity, but at the same time, like right now, as many of you know, I have side hustles because there is my title that I held. There's nothing, another company like that within, you know, hours from where I'm at right now. There's just, that job is just, does not exist here. That title does not exist here. That title means nothing here. So I have taken on lesser paying roles that a lot of people in my old life would turn their noses to. But I look at it as, that is more money than I made yesterday. Something is better than nothing. You need to look at it that way too. I have a video, pretty popular video of mine about our tornado shelter and what we paid for it. And it wasn't cheap, but by shelter standards, it was pretty inexpensive. And I've had people comment and saying, oh, that's for rich people only and blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. We budgeted for it, we saved for it, and we felt it was an important need. But on the same note, and this is what upsets me a little bit too in general, I'll respond and give a very well-detailed response. And I've done this on Reddit, people asking, questions about, and I'll write down a book and I never get a response back because people don't like to hear the realities of things. But the reality is, it is expensive. Your safety has no price on it, and you have to scrimp and save and take from other areas, such as my new Bronco, which I'm not driving, kind of like our property. We have a solar system. That was one of the first things we purchased. That money, the solar system, the well, different things, water catchment system, that could have purchased a Bronco. But what are priorities? It's one of those things. Our priority was infrastructure, and slowly comfort items and other things will add to the homestead. But right now, we wanted infrastructure set up. So that is power, water, the home itself, heating, air conditioning, that type of stuff. Things that we're going to use every single day. The Bronco would be nice, but I mentioned to this person about the tornado shelter. I'm like, yeah, but I gave a bunch of resources. FEMA has grants that they would help you with the shelter. FEMA has plans on their website on how to build a storm shelter in your home using stuff you could buy at Home Depot. And like I said before, nothing is cheap anymore. You got to get that through your mind. That is one thing that, nothing is cheap anymore. So keep that in mind when you're thinking of homesteading. Keep that in mind with everything nowadays and plan for that. It's one of those things right now, my early retirement and living here, I've had to pivot and shift our thinking, almost like a paradigm shift in just everything thinking, because old world where we used to live, that logic doesn't go here. We are living someplace completely different, and it is a different way of life, but at the same note, it's so fulfilling and free, and living simply just is easy once you get used to it. I'm gonna want a Bronco probably forever, or a Ineos Grenadier, which I like even more, but of course the price is even higher, so it's just a dream. It's good to have dreams. But on the same note, I am based on reality, and what is more important, having a Bronco or having freedom, having financial freedom? It's some people YOLO, and they're gonna go buy the Bronco and just pay that financing and just, then they'll buy a $30,000 UTV, they'll buy a boat, this, that, and just YOLO and just keep spending. That is not us. I get analysis paralysis on everything. If I'm gonna buy tires, it takes me a couple months to research because I want the best tires money will buy. And that's how I am with everything, unfortunately. And that's one of those things you might want to learn when you're homesteading. Don't be in a rush. The only time you might want to be in a rush is if you find a sweet deal on a property, because land that is priced well does not last. That's one thing I have learned. If it's priced right, it's going to be gone. So that is one thing. When we sold our property, our 40 acres in Wisconsin, in 3 counties, there were maybe 10, I don't even think 10 properties over 10 acres in that area, in 3 counties. The supply was gone. We had offers within the first week. It was just crazy. In this area, I've looked at properties, and a lot of these properties are sitting for a year, and this is in a lot of rural areas, and they sit. So you got to keep that in mind, the supply and demand. Right now, also, if you look at silver, things like gold, they're going astronomical. And what that means, silver and gold is currency. Everything else is credit. So that means the dollar, paper dollar, the dollar we use every day, is shrinking inflation. It's losing value. So keep that in mind. We have been on that path for a while. And like I said, it's not going to be this instantaneous, you know, Mad Max, I'm going to have a mohawk tomorrow, you know, kind of thing. It is slow decline. And one of the, I'm going to throw into a movie, I love movies. One of the best movies that replicates this, I believe, is Children of Men. So if you ever get a chance and you want a good apocalyptic, slow burn type of scenario, great movie. So that's all I'm going to talk about that movie though. But this is about homesteading, peppersteading, the American dream. You know, we're all of us YouTube homesteaders are millionaires, which is not true, far from it. Far, far from it. So what can you do as a homesteader now to offset this? Have some side hustles. You know, there's part-time jobs, you know, more than one job. I have a few side hustles now. I'm trying to fill a need or create a need. That's about the best you can do. The other thing is limit spending. The big one that helped us get to this point, but it's a slow one, and this is my wife and I. We both met, we both had, she had a better job than me when we met, but I was working, I had a job, and it was good. And then we just kept working hard. Every time we got a raise, both of us, or a promotion, or we changed jobs and our income went up, we lived like it never happened. And we just kept doing that. And eventually I surpassed my wife, which was pretty good. It made me feel good because it's not a contest, but it was a contest. So, but now she surpassed me again though, because by a lot, because early retirement and some side hustles, even my surplus business. I think if most people in my old life saw what I made, they would chuckle at me and they probably spend more than that in a month. But at the same note, for me, it is more than I made without doing that. So it's a win. It is a positive. So you need to think out of the box, think of ways to save money. One of the things I used to do that I loved, somebody else taught me this too. Like on Amazon, buying stuff on Amazon is super easy. It's almost too easy. So somebody told me, you need something, you put it in your cart. You leave it in your cart for 2 weeks because you got to work for 2 weeks. And then it makes you think about it. And then in 2 weeks, you'll be like, do I really need this? Man, I worked all that. That was a long time. And a lot of times, 90% of the stuff you're like, I really don't need. One thing I do need to do, and this is completely unrelated, but I need to trim my beard. Twice I had to go out in town and I was checking out at a grocery store and the lady asked me if I was eligible for the discount. And I said, what discount? And she said, oh, senior citizen discount. Young people. And then the other one was in the snow, FedEx driver. He called me and said, hey, I don't know if I can get down your driveway. Can you meet me? And I said, yeah, but I didn't know when. And then all of a sudden I heard him. So I went running there. And he was like, whoa, slow down, slow down. He goes, kind of one of those, because I'm an old man, I'm going to slip and fall and break a hip. So, so my wife does say when I shave the beard and trim it down a little bit, I look younger. She said I look old and like a frumpy old man when I let it grow out like this. So completely off topic, but related to the topic though, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it is just beautiful out here this time of the year. Like I could just stand here and talk. And I know a lot of people, I get hate comments on my channel all the time because I just stand there and talk. And unfortunately, for me, this is more of a blog / sometimes you get to see me do some fun stuff, but most of the time it's just a video blog and I can't really walk around and show you like, oh, this is me saving money on, because it's more of the concept of it. Think of this as we're in a board meeting. We're discussing homesteading and ways to save money. And the good thing is I'm hoping a lot of my viewers, a lot of you are homesteaders, and I'm hoping you can chime in and give some comments too of ways that you save money, how you did it, because there is a lot of people that this is only going to be a dream for them. They may never get to do this. So all of us homesteaders, peppersteaders that are watching, that we're together, as they say in Full Metal Jacket, I use this line all the time. You talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? And all of us that are living this lifestyle, we walk the walk. We took the plunge. We took the leap of faith. We took the struggle to do this. And we took the gamble, and we are doing it. But it was that saying one day or day one. It's depending on how you look at it. You know, it's a lot of people, it's one day I'm going to do that one day. And we were like, day one, tomorrow, boom, we're doing this. You know, it's tough. You need to really think about if you want to do this, because I've done other videos on isolation. If you're a city person, you got to go out and see people all the time, you may want to reconsider. But on the same note, you could integrate yourself in the community and kind of fill that void also. There's just so many things. But simple answer, is homesteading expensive? Yes, because everything is expensive. So now that we got that out of the way, you need to figure out ways to make it obtainable, and there's lots of ways. Like I said, one of the things I wanted, 150 plus acres when we bought property. We had to shrink that down. You know, we wanted different things and we had to shrink that down. You know, you need to be realistic. Was it worth it? Yes. So I'll leave it at that, because I can one thing I can do is yap, yap, yap. And sorry about the hands, because I know I get complaints on that all the time. My hands are just kind of all over the place. So I apologize about that. They've got a mind of their own. But yeah, I'm gonna end it there. So I got some fun things to go do today. Do some shooting, do some other stuff. Those of you that this is still a dream, man, you have one life to live. Just always remember that. And remember, one day or day one. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Until next time. Till next time. Bye. Good camera. I'm still waiting for the temperature in my water to be perfect. It's still warming up. I'm gonna end it there. Thanks. Like and subscribe. I gotta support this shirt because it was a gift. I love it. I do. So thanks again. Bye.